Cork City, born and bred Munster and Ireland backline player Simon Zebo is one of the most interesting people in all of Irish rugby, and as his TikTok followers know, he's a lot of fun. But there's a bit more to this guy's story, and that's what we're here to talk about today in Cork. Have you always been the guy who pulls the pranks and who makes the jokes? From a social perspective, like the kids you were playing with when you were 7 years old, would they say Simon's just always been that guy?
Yeah, and my best friends are still those kids from 7 years old.
Really?
So yeah. That's just how I operate, really, I suppose. And I try to live life with a smile on my face and just have a bit of fun, play some pranks, just try and make other people smile too. I'm not a big fan of stress, so just try and relax and have fun. That's me.
When did your dad move over here?
My dad moved in 1982, I think, 1983.
So he came over from Martinique?
Yes, to Paris. He went to Paris first. Yeah.
And then to Ireland?
And then he met my mother in Paris while he was doing his service from the army, and he was DJing as well at the time, and met my mother, yeah. And then about 2 years after, they moved over to Ireland, yeah.
Was he very aware of the fact that raising a child who looks different, both you and your sister, in an environment like Cork would require, you know, a bit of effort, at least from your side, to really fit in? We
did speak about it. We would have had a few conversations about, you know, how, I suppose, certain scenarios and how to react. But as a whole, I think, unless something happened where I come home or my sister would come home visibly upset, for example, from having an argument and race might come into it, then he'd just keep it as normal and just, you know, we're humans, you know, everybody's human, so we're all one race kind of thing. He didn't want to make a big deal out of it and make us conscious about it when just living a day-to-day life. So unless something happened, but when something did happen, those chats would have been very, I suppose, educational and very helpful, definitely, when you're growing up.
Did you experience a lot of overt racism, or was it more kind of subtext?
Oh no, yeah, overt racism, yeah, loads. It was very in your face, very harsh. You see, when you're like growing up in different, if a kid wants to, you know, make you feel bad or wants to piss you off, for example, that's the first thing they went to, you know. So if I was ever called a name, playing sport or hanging out with friends, it was always you black, then the name, you know. You learn how to deal with this, and the chats with my father were very important. To try and just acknowledge that it's just silly, stupid, uneducated people trying to put you down, basically. So
you had that high-profile experience of racism at the match in Ulster, right? Is there something that we need to change in rugby? Do we, at this stage, have we spoken about race enough? Yeah. Probably not as much, you know. Like the sad thing is that it takes like a certain events to happen for action to be, you know, action to follow, I suppose. It's not something that's incredibly hidden. Like, it happens on a daily basis, so it would be nice to see more done about it and more of a focus on it, and it should be eradicated by this stage, which is sad to see it's not. So anytime something happens in sport, what an opportunity to come down with the hardest punishments, the hardest sanctions, punish the team. If your supporters, you know, there's so much that can be done that's just not being done. If a supporter knows, if I racially abuse someone and my team gets relegated, for example, or loses a load of points in the log, supporters won't do it. You know, they need to understand that there's consequences for your actions. If you're willing to abuse someone, violence isn't the answer, but you'd like to see people lose their job. I'd like to see someone lose their job if they think it's okay to racially abuse someone. I'd be very, very harsh on punishments. Probably be lucky I'm not the judge handing out the punishments, because I have zero tolerance for racism at all. And that day in Belfast, really, it annoys me to this day. Like, it doesn't go away. Like, it's still, anytime I think about that, it's a blotch on my my rugby memories, I suppose. It's the fact, like, I should have walked, like, there's always that thing playing in your mind, like, what should I have done? How should I have reacted differently? I'm not saying I should have went over and punched the guy. Should I have walked off the pitch? Should I have told my coaches I'm not playing anymore? I don't know, like, you know, it still annoys me, it still kind of haunts me, but hopefully it never happens again. No player has to deal with that again, and the sanctions and punishments certainly need to change because it wasn't good enough, really.
You've got such a storied rugby career already at the age of 32, and you've done massive things. You've gone amazing places, done a Lions tour. I mean, you played in that big game at Soldier Field. Is that one of your personal and professional highlights?
For sure, yeah. That was an incredible game. There was a little backstory to it, obviously, with Axel Foley passing not so long before that. So the game meant a lot to us as a playing group, and anytime you play for your country, but playing against the All Blacks in Chicago and the circumstances around the game with Axel and different things, it was such a special game for us.
I've only ever heard people speak so highly of Axel Foley. Why? What impact did he have on you personally? Culture is so important in a team, and you guys really seemed to play for him in that match.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely Axel at the front of our minds that day. Not just the Munster players, the whole squad, the wider playing group were incredible. But I had Axel as a coach since I was under 19 and 20. So I had a really strong relationship. He then transitioned into being my forwards coach, for example, and then head coach. So throughout my Munster career until he passed away, he was my coach, and we had a really good relationship. He loved my antics on the dance floor, for example. If we were on an away trip on a night out, he was almost like Pete in the sense that he had that tough exterior, but he was a sweetheart. Like, you know, he's a softie on the inside who just loved a bit of divilment and a bit of crack. So we really got on well. He was always one to let me express myself. He was never, you know, pull back the reins. So if I want to try an offload out the back, or if I want to try a chip over the top, or just use my skill set, he never ever held me back. He'd be just like, make sure it comes off. If it doesn't come off, then you're wrong. You know?
Yeah.
So, he was great for me. Really helped my development at that age, particular 19, 20, when you're trying to find yourself as a rugby player as well. You know, what makes me tick? What's my game going to look like in a few years? And having him as coach certainly had a huge impact on me.
What has your thoughts been on the women's game and the calls for more allyship?
Oh, there needs so much more to be done. My daughter loves playing rugby at the moment. But she doesn't see like that direct pathway to just being a rugby player. It looks like almost she'll have to find a job and then do rugby on the side, like, you know. So there's a lot more that needs to be done from a public point of view. In Ireland anyway, the crowds are massive for all the women's international games. They're selling out stadiums. There's a huge demand to see these incredible athletes perform on a weekly basis. So it's there to grow the game. You just need a bit more work from, I suppose, the fellas in suits to just put a bit more effort into it. And I think the game can take off, and young girls like my daughter can see a pathway and grow up wanting to play rugby, and I'd love that.
I'm so here for the next Zebo to play for Ireland.
Me too.
To be a girl.
Absolutely. It would be unreal. I'd be proud as punch, yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
And we look forward to the great heights
Thank you
that
so
await.
much. Thank you so much.
You've still got a few years in
Still
you.
a few more years in me, yeah. And then, you never know, but you can be sure enjoyment and fun will be at the forefront of post-rugby life.